Popcorn Poops is brought to you by Audible.com. Please visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for a free audiobook and free 30-day trial of their subscription service. Audible is the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. Audible.com is offering a free audiobook download to listeners of Popcorn Poops along with a 30-day trial of their services. This week, we're recommending The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami, narrated by Rupert Degas. To download this or another audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops. Be sure to visit the correct URL so they know we sent you, and you'll be helping to support our show. Again, that's audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for your free audiobook.
My name is Jessica.
And my name is Dustin.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Here at Popcorn Poops HQ, we produce a movie podcast and commentary track hybrid that may be synced up to whatever film we're talking about or enjoyed as a standalone audio program.
Today we will be watching the 1984 film Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante. If you are syncing this recording up to the movie, go ahead and start the film and then press pause as soon as the Warner Brothers vanity card completely fades to black.
It's time to start the movie. Syncers, press play at the beep after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And this is the second movie in our month of holiday films. 1984's Gremlins. A classic, I guess, right? This is your... I guess it would be considered a classic. And again, I feel like I do this a lot, but I have another movie confession. And I feel like every time I make a movie confession, it qualifies me less and less and less to actually have a movie podcast.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Let's hear your movie confession.
But I think I saw this once when I was a child, and it had no real impression on me. It was not an important film to me growing up at all, and I only watched it again for the first time since then. Since I maybe watched it as a kid last week preparing for this.
Really. I'm surprised about that.
You know, saying that it's a classic is kind of interesting because I've discovered, probably to the chagrin of many people who love this movie, that this is kind of a bad movie.
It is. It is kind of bad.
It's kind of a mess. There's a lot, and we'll talk about it, but there are a lot of things about this movie that don't make, I mean, and it doesn't have to make sense because it's kind of a screwball horror comedy Christmas movie. Very, very strange mix of things. But characters...
Oh, look, it's Short Round.
Yes, and this also it's kind of racist and xenophobic, and
yes, it is,
and justifies xenophobic characters for their prejudices and all that kind of stuff. There are lots of really strange things in this movie. Characters get dropped off, character arcs don't get completed, and we'll discuss all that, I'm sure. But yeah, if you're a big fan of Gremlins, this episode is probably going to piss you off because I'm going to rail on it. Now, your experience with this movie, your history with this movie has been what exactly?
Well, this was my nightmare fodder when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. Nightmare fuel?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was when I think so this came out in 84 and I was born in 87.
Yeah.
And I think my parents must have had it on like for themselves at some point when I was very young. And I have this vague memory of coming in and sort of watching it like from the hallway or the bedroom door or something like that, where, I wasn't really supposed to be watching it, but they weren't telling me to go away maybe as strongly as they should have. Mm-hmm. I crept out of bed or something. And whatever I saw as a child, it just destroyed me for years of my life.
So you had nightmares about this movie. It scared you a lot.
The two movies that scared me were Gremlins and Chucky. Chucky scared me.
Really?
The
That's
Child's
so
Play movies.
Because they're both kind of...
And I never watched them.
The strange thing is that they're both kind of known for being comedies.
Horrors.
Horror comedy movies. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a horror element to this movie, and I think so much more so for the Child's Play films. But... can you call them films? Are they films? Do they deserve to be called films?
Sure.
But that's kind of strange. Of course, I didn't have that experience. The kind of movies that scared me when I was a kid, like It. It was a big one for me. Stephen King's It. But yeah, certainly nothing that was like unconventionally horror like this, or something that maybe wasn't necessarily horror. I guess maybe my one example is the beginning of Total Recall, when Arnold Schwarzenegger's character is having the dream of being on Mars and his helmet breaks and his eyes bug out. That scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Huh.
But yeah, this certainly wasn't one of those.
No, this movie, I distinctly remember being terrified of gremlins. Like when I'd wake up crying from a nightmare and my parents would come and try and figure out what was wrong, it was always gremlins. It was gremlins. I was terrified of them. I never even watched this movie. And my parents, like, as I got older and I got into like elementary school and later elementary school, my parents were like, because I would watch scary movies. I would watch other scary movies. And I wasn't a kid that got freaked out by them. And they continually told me, you really should just watch Gremlins because it's really not scary. It's kind of funny. It's a funny movie. And I just would have none of it until maybe like the end of elementary school, because it blew up in my mind. It expanded into like the most terrifying thing, because
aggrandized it
because
a bit,
I never watched it. And so those glimpses that I had as a child, they were so much worse. And when I finally watched it, when I was maybe in later elementary school or something, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is not scary. It's actually pretty funny. I thought it was funny as a kid.
So
at least I don't think it's quite as funny now.
I've already said that this is kind of a bad movie. It's also kind of a bad Christmas movie, because a lot of the themes that we talked about in Christmas movies when we talked last week about John McTiernan's Die Hard, which I think absolutely works as a Christmas film, this doesn't at all.
And look at this billboard here. Indiana Jones much?
This is like one of the first ways that this movie sort of rips off Steven Spielberg's other films, films that he has not only directed but also produced, and then films that he would come to produce later. And the more movies that we do on this show and analyze that come from some kind of Spielbergian influence, whether as a producer or as a director or as a writer, I've come to learn that he rehashes and recycles a lot of ideas and visual motifs and things. Of course, he was famously a producer on Back to the Future, which was not yet made, which was not a film yet. This is 1984. Back to the Future is 1985. And this town that they're in, Kingston Falls, in this film is the same set as Hill Valley from Back to the Future. And I guess it's a Warner Brothers backlot called the Courthouse Square. I heard
it was used in a lot of. It's been used for a long time, is what I heard. And some of the movies that I found that it had been used for were like Inherit the Wind and To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh wow! Even as far back as that, yeah. It's really strange. You would think with a backlot set as big as this, they would use it more. But if you look at the films that it's used in, it only comes up one every few years. So it makes me wonder, what's the point of keeping it around? You know what I mean? Like if a backlot set is that big and it's taking up that much space, you'd think that they would use it for multiple films every year. Yeah. But if you can look, there's an entire Wikipedia page about Warner Brothers Courthouse Square set, and it's there are a lot of movies, but not as many as you would think for them to keep that thing around, right? So here we've got our main character, Billy, played by what's his name? I don't know. I have no idea what this guy's name is. He's gone on to do some other stuff, but I don't really know what he's done. I haven't followed him.
But the guy he's talking to is pretty famous, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a. You can't say famous because he's a character actor, but
I know it. Like I know him. I recognize him. The guy, the neighbor who is the super xenophobe. Like he's got so many issues with foreigners. That's right. Billy's
played by Zach Galligan, who's in films like the Waxwork series and stuff like that, other B horror things. Mr. Futterman is played by a character actor by the name of Dick Miller, who's been in just a ton of stuff. Like he's got one of those instantly recognizable faces. But yeah, he's He's been around for a while. This is written by Chris Columbus, who also wrote the Young Sherlock Holmes movie that we watched a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Written by the same guy?
Written by the same guy.
How is that possible?
I don't know, but he's done like a gajillion Christmas movies. That's the thing that I realized is how, because we're doing this for December as a Christmas movie, and we even talked about how Young Sherlock Holmes kind of was a nice segue into this month of Christmas movies. Going back through his body of work, films that he's both directed and written, he's done a lot of Christmas stuff. For example, most recently, Christmas with the Cranks, of course, Gremlins, Young Sherlock Holmes. He directed Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, which both have kind of significant Christmas portions. Home Alone and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, which are both Christmas films. So it's...
Wow.
I don't know. What's up with Chris Columbus doing
what
Christmas
I was
movies?
saying about, like, how can it be that he wrote both of them is that... I thought Young Sherlock Holmes, like it wasn't a perfect script by any means, but I thought it was okay. It was passable.
It was fine. Sure.
This movie, like the biggest problem with this movie is that it starts off in the very beginning when the dad is looking for a present for his son in Chinatown.
Yeah.
It starts off in the very beginning with and it's got like that noir film kind of overtone.
Yeah, he's narrating over himself.
And
it's
he's
kind
got
of
like the fedora on and stuff.
Yeah, he walks by a broken down car, which is actually is an AMC Gremlin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of a cute little piece of trivia.
But anyways, and he's walking and he's talking about, I didn't know what I was doing that night when I was in Chinatown. And I was whatever. Like he's telling the story in a deep voice and
right.
And by the end of it, he basically sets up a traditional folktale moral where our basis has something to do, we know, with Chinese folklore of some sort, because we've got this mogwai thing,
which is actually a Chinese word, kind of mispronounced. I can't pronounce it correctly, but it's closer to something like mogui or something like that, which does mean like demon or monster. Or
imp. I have the whole etymology of it here, but I'll go into that later. But anyways, so he's telling this backstory, and he's setting up this story, and we get the impression that this is going to be a like traditional folklore kind of driven moral tale, like the sort of thing where you expect at the end of the movie for there to be a very distinct maxim, right? A very distinct moral that they're going to plainly tell us. And he does at the very end. His narrative voice comes back and he says something, but it just doesn't make any fucking sense. And
it's nothing. It's throwaway.
And the whole movie is kind of like that, where they set up these story elements and they make it seem like it's going to be a clear-cut story. Like even here right now we've got Billy talking to
Mrs. Deagle.
Mrs. Deagle, aka
Miss
Mrs.
Gulch from The Wizard of Oz. Basically, like it's basically the same character.
She's that and Scrooge.
Yeah, she is the Scrooge-like character, but she even has her own like wicked kind of theme song when she's walking down the street,
and she's talking about how the many ways in which she's going to kill his dog.
Right. So
now.
His dog, Billy's dog, trespasses on Mrs. Deagle's property and kills or destroys her like porcelain Bavarian snowman, as she calls it. And then she says she wants to take the dog to have it killed, or that she's going to kill it, which is basically the exact same motivation, like right down to it's a dog in The Wizard of Oz, which we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she even kind of dresses like Miss Gulch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her whole mannerism, I'm wondering if maybe the character was just intentionally, I mean, it has to be, right? Like it's too obvious. Like the only thing she doesn't say is something like, "And your little dog too," or something like that. Like,
yeah, well, she looks right at the dog and says, "I'll get you," which is one of the lines that.
So I mean, it obviously is a callback to that. So maybe her performance is also a callback to that, because the way she holds herself too, the way she holds her bag, and sort of just her cadence and everything.
So this guy sitting next to Billy at the bar is Chuck Jones, legendary animator and
I was
voice
wondering.
actor.
I had a note about that, and my note was basically, who the hell is this old man who is sitting here, who we briefly saw in the bank? I think it was the same. He was in the bank too.
Oh, was he? I didn't see.
And he, when she talked about how she was going to kill his dog by putting it in a spin dryer, I think.
Right.
He was like, well, that'll do it.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that was him.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
Yeah, it was a different guy.
But anyway, so he's sitting here at the bar just giving him art advice, and I had no idea what that meant, but you just answered it.
Yeah, like all of this stuff that they're setting up right now is so superfluous. It doesn't actually matter. Like they set it up and nothing happens with it. Right now we've got Judge Reinhold's character, who is a very, well-to-do or up-and-coming, cutthroat, you could even say, you get that from his personality, junior vice president of the bank that Billy works at, and he's talking about how he's setting himself up with various, forms of ass-kissery to be the new vice president or president of the bank by the time he's like 25 years old.
Yeah, he says he's 23. That's 23?
Yeah, yes. He says he's 23
God.
now. He expects to be the president of the bank by the time he's 25 and then a millionaire by the time he's 30. So that's his whole deal, and he's got a motivation, and you can sense that there's some kind of rivalry between him and Billy, but then Mr. Futterman sets up this idea that Billy is a cartoonist, an amateur cartoonist, and when is he going to get his stuff in the paper and stuff like that. And then we see at the bar he's sitting next to Chuck Jones, or the character that Chuck Jones is playing just as a cameo, and he's like doing this drawing of Mrs. Deagle as like the Jabberwocky, right, as this big monster that some hero is fighting with a sword, right? None of the drawing stuff, none of the cartooning stuff ever
Isn't
matters.
that the last time we see his coworker?
No, we see his coworker one more time in passing as he walks through the bank and says hello to the bank vice president again, and then disappears. And that's it.
They set it up. They set it up as a rivalry right there. They even made it like a romantic rivalry because he was hitting on the girl at the bar.
Exactly. He's hitting on Kate, who's played by Phoebe Cates.
And I love how they were just like, well, we want her in the scene at the bank, and we also want her in the scene at the bar, so let's just make her work
2 jobs.
24/7.
Yeah, exactly. She works 2 jobs. So you can see she's his coworker at the bank early in the day. And it's strange that a guy who's an aspiring cartoonist has such a button-down job as a bank teller, but that's fine, whatever. And then he goes to the bar later and she's working the bar too.
And didn't he make a comment too, like, "Oh, you're working here now," or something like that? And then you're
I
like,
didn't hear. Maybe
I think she said she was helping out her sister or something, or somebody, so somebody didn't have to pay for a waitress or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And anyways, it doesn't matter. But
The concept of Dory's Tavern, like there being a bar, only really exists to help set up that Mrs. Deagle, much like Miss Gulch, owns lots of the town. She owns a real estate agency that basically buys up properties in the town, and she wants to make the town hers. She wants to, or you get the impression that she wants to kind of shape this town in the way that she seems fit. And Phoebe Cates' character, Kate, doesn't like the way she's going about this. Lots of people don't like the way she's going about this, and she wants to close down Dory's Tavern. So she's trying to get Billy to sign a petition to make the tavern a landmark.
So she's helping out somehow by volunteer working at the bar.
Sure,
I think that's
maybe,
what I got out
does
of that.
does it even come back at all?
Yeah, because she is volunteering because the guy, his coworker, I forget his name again because he's only in the movie for like 5 seconds. But
the Judge Reinhold character.
Yeah, that character. He makes a comment to her about like not getting paid for her work and like how that makes her less of a person somehow, and then proceeds to hit on her, which is totally the smart move. So that's what you do, is you make fun of a girl.
I mean, that's all well and good. And the things that we're going to continue bringing up, all of the little weird inconsistencies and thrown away plot lines and thrown away character arcs and things. And it basically comes down to this movie was way too long when they wrote it. And apparently the original cut of this movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Oh my God, I want to see that so hard.
No, I don't. I don't need any more of this movie than there already is.
That would be awesome. Okay, but here's the reason, right here. This is the reason why this movie is okay. This is what saves it, makes the whole movie totally worth it.
Gizmo, needlessly voiced by Howie Mandel. Why?
Who cares?
Why is he voiced by Howie Mandel?
So cute. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yes, Gizmo's adorable. We know this.
The cute factor with Gizmo is just when he does his angry face and he does his little sad pouty face. Oh my God. Oh my God, he's so cute.
Why is he called Gizmo?
I don't know why.
It's another thing that was cut out of the movie. Apparently, there's
you were gonna tell me something.
No, apparently there's, and this makes sense. Like, this is a scene I would have liked to see in this movie because it gives character where there is none. But alas, there was a scene where Gizmo and Billy's father Rand, who's this inventor guy, who at the beginning of the movie, we didn't talk about it, but at the beginning of the movie he was in the Chinese curio shop in Chinatown,
right, when he was doing the noir voice and stuff,
right, trying to sell this invention called the Bathroom Buddy, which is just this big brick that's got it's like a Swiss Army knife of like toiletries, right? It's got like a razor and a toothbrush, and
mostly it's a gag joke for spraying toothpaste all over everyone,
which they do twice. Har har har. And there was a scene where on the way back home he stops in a hotel and he's playing with Gizmo, and Gizmo's in the bathroom like messing with the Bathroom Buddy. So he's like, "Oh, I'm going to call you Gizmo because you like gizmos."
That's cute.
Right?
Here's really cute when Gizmo's singing a song.
Oh, and he's playing it on the keyboard, copying him like the
Sounds
end of...
Sounds a little bit like another movie I've seen.
Like Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Perhaps the last famous scene of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, perhaps?
Perhaps that one.
The song even sounds kind of like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's only one of so many examples where Steven Spielberg has just ripped off his own movies, even movies that he hasn't made yet. Like, we missed a bunch of them.
Oh, Gizmo with the Santa hat.
At the beginning of the movie, Billy is walking through town because his car won't start, which is another like little convenient plot point that ends up not mattering in the end, really. It's like it's a contrivance and a convenient. I don't even know what it is. Like, it matters, but it doesn't. I don't know. But he's walking through town to get to work, and he walks by a movie theater, and on the marquee, what does it say? It says A Boy's Life
and Watching the Skies,
and
or
Watch
something
the
like that?
Skies,
Watch the Skies,
which were working titles for E.T. the Extraterrestrial and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, respectively.
Oh, that's cute. This is my favorite Gizmo scene right here. Look at those pouty lips. Look, and when he puts the little Band-Aid on his head, and Gizmo's got the frowny face. Oh my God, he's so cute.
Oh, the character that Judge Reinhold plays is named Gerald. And he could have been a great like villain for this movie, like a great human villain that Billy is a rival with, but of course,
right, and then like dies graphically.
Yeah,
as
kind of like Mrs. Deagle does. Like
right,
Mrs. Deagle dies.
Same kind of thing. Like set him up to be a real asshole and then kill him dramatically.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what these kind of movies are for, right? Like that's the purpose.
But like just to drive that home that he's such an asshole, the drink that he orders at the bar is a vodka martini shaken not stirred. He orders James Bond's fucking drink. What a fucking dick bag.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we've established that that I like this look that he gives the juicer right here as he takes a glass and just
that's kind of the look that I would
looks over
give
his shoulder.
Anything in this house. One of the questions,
because we have established that his father Rand is an inventor, so lots of these things in their house, but nothing works. He's a terrible inventor. Exactly.
Here's one of my questions about just like how things work in this world. How I get the impression that the mom is a stay-at-home mom, because all we ever see her doing when she's not in a very badass way killing gremlins, which is super fantastic toward the end of the movie. When she's not doing that, though, the only thing I ever see her doing is chopping a massive pile of disgusting onions or decorating gingerbread men. Yeah. So I get the impression she does not have a job.
Right.
Where is their money coming from? Because he's not selling these inventions.
No, I assume that Rand is somewhat successful because he talks about some, people having his inventions and selling them for him. So, I mean, I get the feeling that he's somewhat successful in what he does. Like, you can just look around and see. Like, he's kind of a shitty inventor, but he's made something that works at some point. Right? So... But yeah, it's
So this movie, is this the racing one? Is this the racing movie?
yes,
With
yes.
Clark Gable in it, right?
Yes, that's right.
It's called To Please a Lady.
That's right. Starring
And-
Clark Gable and Barbara Stanwyck.
And so this is
From
going to come back
1950.
because right now Gizmo's really into it, and he's driving the car and he's making cute little noises and bouncing, and that's real cute. And later he's going to get in the toy car and do it, and that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
But
he quotes like really weird stuff from
or like the movie is quoted in his head, but
Right,
the movie's
yeah.
quote is not.
it doesn't have anything
There's no
to do.
relevance
Right.
to Gizmo like driving the car through the toy store, through the department store at the
He
end of the
says
movie.
something about like it takes a certain kind of dame or something like that. And you're just
something
like, what?
stupid. Yeah,
What are we talking about?
yeah. One of just many very ridiculous things. And this is Corey Feldman, a child of the 80s, a stalwart of the 80s.
From
He's
the
in a ton
Goonies,
of
right?
stuff from the Goonies, from Lost Boys, from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, playing the voice of Donatello. I mean, that's one of his lesser roles, but
Oh, this is cute too, where he's blinking and then Gizmo's blinking.
yeah, it's adorable. But Corey Feldman's character, again, he's set up in this movie as something like he's the kid in the neighborhood who's kind of spunky and he wants one of the Mogwai. But then after this scene, do we see him one other time?
I think we see him in the high school. I think he's leaving the
He
high school
leaves the high
classroom,
school, right?
And he's
as
trying
Billy's bringing in Gizmo to be looked at by the science teacher.
No. I think, aren't they together at one point when they're with the high school teacher and they're looking at Gizmo?
That's right.
And then in a later scene, he says something. He's trying to get the teacher's attention right before the teacher's death scene, and the teacher won't pay attention to him.
Right, that's right. And he's talking about the pupil stage of the Gremlins.
And then we see him shooting what are they? It's a tribble.
Yeah, they look kind of like tribbles when they come
They
off
do.
of Gizmo.
They do look like tribbles.
It really concerns me that they're not more concerned with Gizmo like writhing in pain and screaming in this scene.
That is a problem.
Like if I had an adorable little animal and I spilled water on it and it started screaming and writhing around, I would be panicking. I would start crying. I'd be like, what have I done?
What have I done? Oh God. Oh God.
And he's still doing it, and he's popping out these other little gremlins. And
yeah, they look like tribbles. Here's the other thing about tribbles. Tribbles were racists. Did you know that?
were they?
They were.
Why were they racist?
Every
I
time
don't-
Klingons came around, they made like this horrible noise and freaked out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's true. That's a true thing.
Well, there's kind of a connection there
So,
because
like,
this movie's kind of
thematically-
racist too.
thematically,
yeah,
it
exactly.
ties into this
That's right.
movie.
That's a motif. Racism, xenophobia is a motif of Gremlins.
Of small furry balls of things.
That's right. You heard it here first. And so we get our villain of the movie, and this is Stripe. Stripe is one of the Mogwai who hatches from Gizmo, and he's got a little mohawk on his head.
If Stripe wasn't there, would the other ones be evil? I mean, how about the fat one that they put in the cage? Do you think he'd be evil?
I'm not sure.
Because he's pretty cute.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It all does seem to be kind of orchestrated at some point by
Well,
Stripe.
they say he's the leader, and
Right.
he's the one who's like calling Gizmo caca, and stuff
so
like
stupid.
that. And they all laugh at Gizmo.
And like 5 minutes ago, not even 5 minutes ago, a minute ago, Corey Feldman was like, "Oh, where can I get one of these? I want to get one." And that just
and now he doesn't want one.
it sets up the moment where he knocks the jar of water over, and 5 more Mogwai are born, and then he just walks away and starts looking at a comic book, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, it's totally neat. I don't even care."
Oh,
anymore.
that comic book they were looking at, though? I looked it up online.
Oh my God, what is it?
The Hooded Menace issue #1. If this really was like an original copy of the comic book, you can find it online now, going for like $475.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no what is it, Amazing Fantasy 14 or whatever, first appearance of Spider-Man that went for like over $1 million at some auction. Yeah. So this character of Rand Peltzer, played by Hoyt Axton, who's another character actor from years gone by. I think he does a really good job with this. one of their first choices for this role was actually an actor by the name of Pat Hingle, who maybe most famously, for people of our generation, probably most famously played Commissioner Gordon in Tim Burton's Batman films.
Okay.
And apparently he did a really, really great screen test and a really great audition, and he was set to play the role, but Steven Spielberg thought that he was too good and would steal the movie. So they decided to put Hoyt Axton in the role instead. And now we've got Gizmo playing a little trumpet under the Christmas tree, and all of the other Mogwai playing a little tabletop Donkey Kong game. And this character of Rand is talking to Billy about them maybe marketing the Gremlins and selling them as the Peltzer pet, selling them as one of his inventions because they're so easily, replicatable. They can multiply.
And it
so
seems
easily.
like that totally makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That he would do that. That's part of his character.
Right. And when they set it up, to me, it sounds like, for someone who isn't very familiar with the movie, when I heard him saying that, I'm like, okay, so they're going to start selling these things and they're going to get them in a bunch of houses and then shit's going to go wrong, right?
That sounds perfect.
So
that
it's gonna
sounds
be,
like a story.
Exactly.
Like a plot.
Widespread chaos, widespread damage with these gremlins transforming because idiots don't know how to take care of their pets. And that could have been another, through line, is that people don't know how to take care of animals and they try to anyway. And
we've got something going on with that too. Like we've got a dog situation with the old woman, like
there's
he's not keeping a leash on his dog, maybe.
It's all kind of set up, but you've heard about studies about like during Christmas time, there are more animals that go to pet shelters or go to animal shelters than any other time of the year because people give pets to their kids and then their kids can't take care of them and then they realize it's too big of a burden and they don't want to take care of them anymore, so they give them away. They give them to animal shelters where they end up being euthanized. That's still to this day a big problem. And that could have been an interesting little angle on this movie, but that's the end of it. Like when he mentions the Peltzer pet.
And nothing else.
That's it.
We never see it again. That's the thing this movie keeps doing, is it keeps setting up stuff that seems
does
like
nothing with.
Well, it seems like, well, that's an interesting little thing here. We've got like some characterization going on, and then they just drop it. For instance, at the very beginning, we saw that I guess he was the chief of police, maybe, or one of the cops in town at least. He goes up to the tree lot where they're selling what's left of the Christmas trees, and he's like, oh, you guys still got a lot of trees out here, oh, ho, ho. And he's like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get a free tree for the police station. And he's like,
right.
Why don't you just buy one like everybody else? And so we get the idea that, this chief of police is kind of like we thought he would. I kind of thought that maybe he was coming to crack down on him for doing something, but no, he's come to try and like swindle a free tree out of him. So this is a shady character, an interesting plot point here, a little twist of nothing. We're gonna get nothing. We're even gonna go to the police station. I'm pretty sure there's not even one of those Christmas trees in there, and that would be such. Maybe they do. Maybe I'll see. I don't know. But
maybe it's just tucked away in the background somewhere, yeah.
But the first time I watched it, I did not see that. The first time I watched it for this, I did not see one of the Christmas trees in there. And I was like, well, that would be like a point right there, is more characterization for this cop by showing that he did swindle a tree out of this guy. But they just kind of leave everything hanging. And I think the last we even see of the cops is, they get blown up in their car or something.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. None of it matters.
Almost every single character arc is left dangling or just disappears entirely. Even like this little dumb relationship that Billy has with Kate, there's nothing to it. Like the climax of their relationship, the peak of their arc is when they're in the department store and he's like, I'm going to go take care of these gremlins. I'll see you later, baby. And he gives her a little peck and grabs a baseball bat and walks away. Like that's the crowning moment of their relationship in this movie. There's nothing to it. Like it's either just completely dismissed outright, like these arcs are completely dismissed outright and not completed, or when they are followed through to some kind of semblance of completion, they're just weak sauce. It's weak sauce. And then, we're going to get to the point where the Gremlins have transformed, or the Mogwai have transformed into the titular Gremlins. And we have at least two, if not more. I think there's at least two extended scenes of just Gremlins shenanigans. And I guess the conservative word to describe these scenes would be a little overlong. Probably the word I would probably use is fucking interminable. Oh my God, they just never stop. And, you think that when they've done it all, that like, well, we're going to see a scene where the gremlins are tearing up the bar, right? And you think that they're coming to the end of the scene, but nope, they've got to do like a little Casablanca spoof, and then they're going to do a Flashdance spoof, and then they're going to do another spoof with the gremlins. And then they do the same thing inside the movie theater where they're just, wrecking the movie theater, and they start singing "Hi-Ho" along to.
But to
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I know I'm complaining about something that is like a selling point of this kind of movie, and
right.
I get
That's what I'm saying is that I understand. I do agree that the scenes are a little long, and I mean, obviously this movie is, like I said, it starts off with some not bad characterization. Like, we start off with a decent story, and then we just forget it. It's like we forget we're talking about it. But however, though, you're complaining about the stupid stuff in the movie. I don't think that that's as easy to complain about, because it's that's why people watch this movie.
Sure,
they don't like us bitching about the plot points or whatever. Nobody really cares, because the reason they go to see this is to see the gremlins put on the Flashdance leg warmers and spin around.
I agree, but I wouldn't care as much about those scenes being so long if there weren't so many other things that are just unfinished in this movie. Just things that don't make sense, things that they don't even care to complete. Character is the core of any good story, and this movie doesn't give a shit about character.
Weren't you saying, though, that you did say that this was a 2.5-hour movie before? So
yeah, it was.
Clearly, the problem is that they just cut too much. They just had to cut too much.
I mean, who's to say that even the 2.5-hour cut had all of the things that I'm asking from this movie? But there's a way to tie all that stuff up, but they just start a bunch of things that never go anywhere, and it drives me crazy watching this movie.
But maybe they do. I mean, how long is this? How long?
88
hour?
minutes or something. 90 minutes. It's a 90-minute movie.
So it's like an hour and a half. If you add another hour onto this, I hope that we get better endings with all our characters, that we get tie-ups for their relationships and stuff. By the way, here, so she makes the comment about the suicide rate.
Right.
In the holidays.
Yeah.
And says that it's always highest around the holidays. That's a myth, right?
I did not know that's a myth.
Yeah,
that's just something I've always kind of taken at face value.
Yeah, it's a myth, and people have been saying it for years and years. It's all over the internet. Like, there are articles and stuff all about it. And, the suicide rate at the holidays, it's always the worst.
Well, set us straight.
People are no, it's not. It's a myth. The CDC says that December is actually the lowest month for suicide.
Oh my God, of course, right?
And that the peaks are actually in spring and fall. And the CDC is very upset about this myth being continued, because they think that it deters from like real suicide awareness and stuff.
Right.
So
the
more you know.
A couple of things that we skimmed over that I wanted to mention was the scene where Gizmo is watching TV, the movie To Please a Lady. We talked about that a little bit. Does that remind you of any other scene from another movie where a strange creature is watching TV and learning
kind
things?
of like
a black and white film, even perhaps?
Black and white film?
The creature's watching a black and white film on TV.
Well, I mean, obviously it's E.T.
Yes, of course. E.T., the extraterrestrial.
The one where a little kid gets drunk in class.
Yes. Yes, that's right. In Billy's room, there's actually a rolled up poster of Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which, interestingly, was not only produced by Steven Spielberg, but also one of the segments, Kick the Can, was directed by Steven Spielberg. And Joe Dante actually directed one of the other segments called, what is it called? It's a Good Life or something like that. It's a Great Life, something. It's the one where the little kid anything that he imagines happens. Do you remember that segment?
I don't know if I remember.
It's really strange. It's probably my least favorite segment.
What about Road Warrior? Because that poster was prominent in the room. Does that have some tie-in?
Actually, it does, because George Miller, who directed The Road Warrior, also directed the final segment of the Twilight Zone movie, which is a remake of the famous episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet,
right?
Which is about
Gremlins.
Right. It's about a gremlin who's fucking with an airplane.
That was one that I was gonna bring up.
Yeah. So all of that stuff's, kind of tied together. And
because
it's interesting, but yeah. I think it's interesting, and they're fun little tie-ins if you know where to look for them, but it's
Easter eggs.
They're Easter eggs, but it also feels a little bit masturbatory to me. It's one of the things about this movie, especially with all of the Steven Spielberg wanking and whatnot going on in this movie. I don't know. It doesn't sit with me the right way.
Like when Stripe says phone home and stuff.
Oh my God, right?
There's a lot of it.
One of Steven Spielberg's contemporaries is, of course, George Lucas, and the Gremlins look like, when they're transformed into Gremlins, I wouldn't say look unlike Yoda, right? So, I don't know, that stuff is a little crazy to me. There's another thing in this movie where they set up that when they close the front door, the sword that's hanging on the wall falls off the wall. You saw that, right? Mm-hmm. So they set that up, and they do it they do the gag a couple of times. And then Billy walks in, and we're not at the scene yet, but Billy walks in when his mom is being attacked by Stripe, or by one of the other gremlins in the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And he walks in the door, and instead of seeing what's going on and freaking out and doing what obviously should have happened, where he goes in the house, looks around, doesn't know what to do, and then closes the door, and the sword falls off, and he's like, oh shit, I'm going to get the sword, because my attention was drawn to it, because it always falls off the wall. He just walks in and sees his mom and just grabs the sword. It's like, what you set yourself up
and they missed it.
And you missed it. But yeah, we'll come to that. We're
that.
kind of all over this movie right now, jumping back and forth. But scene to scene, it's just kind of we're just waiting for the Gremlins to become Gremlins.
Well, Gizmo's real scared of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, this is the famous the seminal Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
He's got his 3D glasses too.
Which I don't. Oh, that's for the comic book.
Yeah.
I was about to say that's not going to work for that movie.
I don't think he's smart enough. He'd just put them on anyway.
How many scenes of Billy going to sleep with Gizmo are there in this movie? Because that's at least the second one.
A lot of them, but if I had a pet that was as cute and snuggly as that, I'd fall asleep next to it a lot.
That would be important part of your relationship.
I mean, that's an important part of relationship with my cat, so.
So here are the gremlin pods, the gross, sticky, oopy goopy, nice practical effect.
Yeah, I think they're nice. They're pretty disgusting looking.
Which, of course, are probably supposed to be more of an homage to Invasion of the Body Snatchers than they are to Alien, but I think they look a lot like Alien. But of course, Alien was the same thing. The alien eggs in. You don't see them in Alien, so I guess it was Aliens, directed by James Cameron, that you see. What is very obviously an homage to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So
one of the things I was wondering about is why the Gremlins are capable of. They're not. Are they Gremlins at this point? Are they always Gremlins? Why the Mogwai are capable of tying up a dog with Christmas tree lights, but they're not capable of going downstairs and getting their own chicken.
Right.
Or getting out of the box that they're in.
Right.
Couldn't they just wait until he goes to bed any night and just get their own food? If
the Mogwai are or if there are some Mogwai that are innately mischievous,
which makes sense. It makes sense as the folk tale creature that they are, as the mythology behind them.
We can accept that Gizmo is a good one. Because he doesn't
want to turn into a disgusting
exactly he in
creature.
fact refuses to eat because the gremlins chew through the cords to Billy's alarm, his
tricking Billy into thinking that it's not past midnight,
and then they tell him to go get them food, and he goes and gets some food, but Gizmo won't eat the food. We're gonna have a couple of cute cameos right here, so. The mother, Lynn, the character of Lynn, is talking to her husband on the phone, and in the foreground here, if you watch carefully, that is Steven Spielberg on a little go-kart, and behind the character of Rand is Jerry Goldsmith in a cowboy hat. Jerry Goldsmith being the music composer for...
Who usually is good.
Who's usually great. There's also the Time Machine, in the background from that famous movie based on the H.G. Wells story, The Time Machine.
Yeah.
And in the next shot, we're going to see that it has disappeared. It is, in fact, time travel.
There it
see
is.
right there.
See? Or there it isn't.
But Goldsmith is still there.
put that.
And, can we talk about the score real quick?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
we
feel
can
like
talk
do you
about
feel the way I feel about this score?
I mean, the theme is memorable to me.
Look, it's Judge Reinhold, and he's gone again. That's it. That's all we get of Judge Reinhold.
That's it.
That's
So that was a good arc, right? That was good.
Oh yeah, complete, just
Really
totally
good.
complete.
Totally, we just
Absolutely
tied up all the loose ends. and
cyclical, exactly what you need. Yeah,
everything's-
sure.
Anyway, so I think the theme is memorable to me because
I would agree.
dun, 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 right?
Yeah,
Like it.
exactly.
You're like, oh, Gremlins. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with this movie, but I can hum the theme now.
Yeah.
Like absolutely, yeah, sure.
The whole thing though, like the rest of it, and
So
it's really amateurish, isn't it?
It is. That's a good word for it. It's really like emotionally on the nose, and
Like sometimes it has like those very Steven Spielberg-esque kind of like sweeping family moments.
It does kind of cop the John Williams-y
Yeah.
type thing, which I feel like Steven Spielberg, after doing Poltergeist, which was technically a Tobe Hooper film, although we've talked about, how we think that Steven Spielberg, most people think this way, that Steven Spielberg actually directed it.
Right, yeah.
I feel like Steven Spielberg, when he's producing something and not directing it, he taps Jerry Goldsmith as maybe the budget John Williams, because
Okay.
he has some
That makes
ability to
sense.
kind of that style.
When he's like, this isn't
emotional-
my movie, so I'm not going to
Yeah,
pay the
that-
money for it.
that
But
big, emotional, sweeping, super cinematic style of music. But yeah, this is not a win. This is not one of Jerry Goldsmith's best. In fact, of the scores that I know that he did off the top of my head, this is probably the worst one that I can think of. It's really, really terrible. Apart from the theme, which
I
is
like
memorable.
the theme. I think it's memorable as a theme. I want it I want the theme on like a Halloween mix CD or something,
Yeah.
But no,
we also
the
missed
rest of it I don't want.
walking through the convention with Rand. We'll see him again in another scene, but Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet
Right.
walked through. Yeah.
So this whole thing with the teacher here,
Yes, so Billy has brought he brought Gizmo, and then he duplicated Gizmo with a drop of water and left the duplicate with Mr. Hansen, the science teacher.
yeah, and then the kid, played by the Goonies kid.
Corey Feldman.
Yeah, he comes in and he's like, "What, the putrid stage?" And then
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
like he doesn't know what the pupil stage is, and it's fine. And then the teacher is like, "No, it's a pupil stage. He's going through a metamorphosis." And then Corey Feldman's like, "Oh, you mean like a butterfly?" It's like, okay, so now you know.
So now you know,
All right.
kid. You just wanted to be gross and say the putrid stage. Anyway, so he just shooed Corey Feldman out of the room, and now he's going to fight the gremlin by offering it candy bars
Right.
and failing.
Science.
Science.
A true man of science.
All things love candy bars. However, this whole thing with the teacher and the bringing the teacher the weird thing that you have in your house and it attacking the teacher and stuff. Do you remember anything from your childhood that later must be influenced by this? Think books. I don't know if you've read this one specifically, but I know you read in the series.
Is it a Goosebumps?
It's a Goosebumps.
Oh, what is? I don't know. What is it?
It came from beneath the sink.
Okay.
The one about the girl and her brother that find the sponge underneath the sink, and it's like an evil sponge with a mouth and stuff, and it starts growing and it's horrible. I think it feeds on like anger or something.
Oh, okay.
And she brings it to her teacher, and they have a battle with it in the classroom.
I don't remember anything about that story.
Anyways,
I may have seen that episode of the TV show.
Yes, I also remember it. I distinctly actually relate it to this because of the TV show, because to me it even kind of looks like it in the TV show. But anyways, though, yeah, so I think it's book number 30.
Wow.
Came right before Night of the Living Dummy 2.
Oh, those masterpieces.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a trilogy? Night of the Living Dummy trilogy?
I think there were 3. But anyways, so it always reminds me of that this whole thing with the high school teacher and it came from beneath the sink in Goosebumps.
Yeah, so this character of Mr. Hansen, I mean, he could be a good character, I guess. Like I kind of like this guy's performance.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
I think he names this gremlin Earl. I think he says the name Earl in this scene. But apart from that, none of the other gremlins have names except for, or do they? No,
Stripe.
I don't think they do. Stripe,
Gizmo,
and I think he says Earl in this scene.
This is the fat one, right? The fat gremlin?
Yeah, I guess so. But when it transforms, it's not fat anymore, right?
It's unfortunate because he was pretty cute when he was fat.
Yeah. But, yeah. Anyway.
What was I going to say about the teacher? I was going to say something else.
I'm not sure, but Billy's going to walk in and he's going to discover that Mr. Hansen has been killed with some kind of chemical injected into his ass by way of hypodermic needle. In the original script, he was supposed to die the same way, except he was going to have dozens of hypodermic needles in his face.
That's better.
But at the request of Steven Spielberg, who I feel just kind of shoves his dick into these productions and says, no, we're going to do it this way now. And I'm going to talk about a couple other ways that he did that, again, for this movie. But that brings me to one of the points that I want to talk about with this movie is that I feel like as a horror comedy, as a kind of horror family film, because this is rated PG and this is pre-PG-13.
This is PG?
This is a PG-rated movie.
Oh, wow.
I feel like tonally, it's really all over the place, and I'm not really sure who it's for. And in that way, it actually kind of reminds me of Peter Jackson's Hobbit movies, the newer ones. Honestly, because
Gonna go into this?
Yeah, I am. I'm. Because I talk about it at length. I am not the biggest fan or a fan at all of Peter Jackson's new Hobbit films. And primarily because I feel like I feel like he's kind of turned into George Lucas with the prequels.
Oh, please don't. No.
No, they're not. They're not that bad. But I feel like
they're nowhere near as bad as that.
Maybe not nowhere near because those are really terrible movies. Like really terrible movies.
Please don't.
But no, I feel like for the same reasons, like there's no one there to tell him no anymore, which is part of the reason why the Star Wars prequels were so bad. I think that was a big core reason why those turned out so terribly. But yeah, Steven Spielberg in this movie, he just makes decisions that I don't know, like mitigate violence in some places, but he allows other things to happen, and the tone of this movie ends up being like it's super family friendly, and there's a really kooky cartoony score by Jerry Goldsmith, and this, that, and whatever, and it's a really good time. It's a romp with the family at the movie theater, and then there's like decapitations and like brutal stabbings, and the character of Lynn, who we're about to see become just a total fucking badass.
Yeah, she's gonna be awesome here.
She kills a couple of gremlins in some particularly brutal ways. Stripe's eventual death at the end of the movie is pretty gross, and I feel like it's not really a kids movie like it wants to be. It acts like it is.
Well, I mean, as a child who watched this, I was terrified of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was probably really young for seeing this when I saw it, but like I said, it destroyed me for a couple of years, and I had to be much, much older when I revisited it and realized it wasn't that scary.
Yeah, there's some really like visceral stuff in this movie, and then of course, like we talked about before, you get these montages of gremlins just being really mischievous and doing crazy things, which are scenes that are really, really too long to be an adult or to be in a film that is, has elements that should be in an adult film.
But they're the scenes though that you're referring to are adult scenes. Like kids aren't going to sit there. Kids who were watching this in 89 or 90 or whatever, like if they're the appropriate age, they're probably not going to really know what Flashdance is anyways, because I sure as hell didn't. I had no idea what Flashdance is. I've still never seen it. So I don't think those references were for kids.
And this
like they're
is, I mean,
silly,
there's
but
some nice moments, like the record play, like the Gremlins putting on the "Do you hear what I hear? Do you,
you
see
can
what
see
I
their
see?"
footprints
song.
in the dust.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. This is like genuinely creepy. Like when it starts up and she's got this look on her face and she's got the knife and she goes downstairs. Like there are some nice horror elements to this that belong in a real horror movie, not a family movie. Now, I say that to say that, I guess rightfully so, this movie along with Temple of Doom, they both came out in the same summer. Even though this is a Christmas movie, this came out in the summer of '84. They helped to kind of create the need for a PG-13 rating. And I think the first PG-13 rated movie came out the next year, and it was Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze. I think that's right. I think that was the first PG-13 rated movie. But I'm saying all that to say that, much like the Hobbit movies, where in one scene you'll have dwarves singing and dancing and throwing plates and having a merry good time, or you'll have a goofy elf played by a rapidly aging Orlando Bloom hopping along these barrels, and it looks like a cartoon. And you go from that to goblins and things getting arrows through the throat and decapitations and bloody battles, real bloody battles. So like that, I feel like this kind of tonally, or at least with the tonal inconsistencies, feels a lot like those Hobbit movies. And I don't like that. Like it feels like they're two different movies that were just smashed together just because.
I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think the difference is that bad. I think the jokes and stuff, I think the silly stuff that's in here, there really isn't much for kids. I think it's colorful like kids like, but I like colorful stuff. I like kooky stuff.
No, I do too.
So I don't have a problem. I don't think this is for kids. I don't think there's very much about it that is for kids. I think there's even some comical stuff that's almost like poking at that.
Okay, so behind Lynn right here in this scene, behind Lynn you can see that the gremlin is still on the counter trying to pull the knife out of its chest. Like it's writhing around trying to pull the knife out of its chest.
But I don't think this is for kids, though.
As she cooks another gremlin until it explodes. And don't get me wrong, I think
it's awesome.
She's like my favorite character in this movie. Look at this. She pulls a knife out and she's like, nope, not good enough.
We're
Two
gonna
knives.
dual wield.
She's dual wielding kitchen knives right now. Like this mom is a badass, certifiable. Like it's amazing.
It's true. I mean, her gingerbread cookie decorations were pretty crappy, so we had to know she was good at something.
She's good at kicking ass.
At kicking ass.
That's
yeah.
Right. Then she kind of disappears because Billy shows up and takes her to the doctor and says, "Here, stay here for the rest of the movie." And
she does.
She obeys.
She obliges him.
But there was actually supposed to be a scene where, like a close up rather, of the gremlin on the counter trying to pull the knife out of its chest. But again, at Steven Spielberg's insistence, no, that's too far. Let's move right on to the exploding gremlin in the microwave, screaming and in pain and writhing around. So, in this scene we talked about earlier, she's going to be attacked by the gremlin inside the Christmas tree, and then Billy walks in and totally ruins the entire setup for the sword falling off the wall. Because they just don't use it. Yeah.
But what I'm saying to you though is that I don't think that there is very much in here that is for children. I don't really see why you have a problem with this movie being like not knowing who it's for, because I think it's obviously for adults. I think they even make some jokes. It almost like it's kind of an adult parody of those family kind of movies. Where, for instance, in the very beginning of the movie, when he goes out and he's buying a Christmas present for his boy, right? His boy's like in his 20s, in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
It's silly. Why is he out buying a Christmas present for my boy?
It's silly, but I
think it's silly. I think it's kind of poking fun at family films.
It's silly, but I wish that it was more committed to making a parody of family films for adults. Because it's not committed to that. It's trying.
Well, it's not committed to anything, but I don't think that it has an age.
That's a very true thing. It is not committed to
But
anything.
I don't think it has an age problem. I don't think it has an audience age problem. I think that people had a problem when they went to go see it and they didn't know who they were showing it to. Like maybe my parents shouldn't have let me stand in the hallway and watch it.
Well, so imagine if
be traumatized for years.
Imagine if like the family stuff tonally was no different, but this movie had a bunch of curse words in it, and none of the violence was mitigated at all, and it was all like at face value.
But then. I get what you're saying, and yes, that would be a better movie. I agree with that. It would be a better movie.
It would be a more successful satire of
However,
family films.
I still don't think this is like I don't think there's stuff in here that's like a kid's movie. I don't see what parts of this are like a kid's movie. Even when the Gremlins are just being dumb, they're still so disgusting looking. They're still so discomforting to look at that it's not
so obviously
it's
for
not
kids.
for children.
It is so
No,
obviously for kids.
I don't think so.
It absolutely is. I
don't. I think it's for adults
so
who are sitting there
long.
having a beer and cracking up because they're smoking and stuff. The Gremlins are smoking.
It was
in those
1984,
scenes.
sweetheart. It was 1984.
And getting drunk.
Right, 1984. It was 1984.
I don't think
It was
that
a different.
justifies
It was a different world. Like really, it was. I do want to talk about Mr. Futterman when we get to him. I guess he's not going to show up for, I don't know, when is his scene? I'm not even sure. But right now, Billy is following Stripe's footprints to the local YMCA where basically events will happen that will cause the hundreds or thousands. I don't know how many gremlins exactly do there end up being.
Well, I guess we're supposed to assume that all of them die in the Snow White fire. So
Well, it's enough to fill a movie theater, and if we can assume movie theater capacity is like 300 or something like that, so about 300, I would say around about 300
Sure.
gremlins. Sure, why not?
now they made how many Gremlins for this movie? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. I was hoping you did.
No, but I know that they each went.
They had to make at least like 30 for some of the shots that we see.
Yes,
Where all the Gremlins are moving
unless they're
together.
composite
But
shots.
what do you mean by that? That
Where
like,
they copy them, they just take multiple shots and combine them together.
But I mean, like where they're all in the same, like when they're all in the bar together, and you get a really wide view of the bar, and you can see them all sitting at the tables and stuff, and they're all moving independently and have different costumes on and stuff. And I think in those scenes, it looks pretty obvious to me that they're all definitely their own Gremlins.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like maybe they made like 20 of them or more.
I know that word on the street is that each gremlin puppet cost between $30,000 and $40,000 to make, each one. And they were so valuable and so desired by like the crew and the people working on this movie that were like, because when you have a lot of something, a lot of a certain type of prop, the chances that one of them are going to go missing is a lot higher because someone wants to keep something, some piece of memorabilia from their, their work on the film. They, at the end of the day, they would have everyone like pop their trunks in the parking lot of the studio and look and see if anyone had stolen a gremlin, because they were so expensive that they just couldn't afford to let people walk away with a $40,000 puppet.
Gosh.
So now that Stripe has multiplied and made the 300 odd gremlins, I guess we can assume this movie is going to pick up and go. Is it going to pick up and go and it's just going to get crazy now?
Yeah, no. Oh, did you see a Christmas tree? I didn't see a Christmas tree.
I think I did. I think I saw
Did
some
you?
lights on something. Yeah, maybe.
So maybe they did show that he had swindled a Christmas tree out of the guy on the lot.
And this sheriff is a drunk.
Yeah, he's like, he says to him, "You're drunk." He says to the sheriff. I mean, they have no respect for their positions whatsoever. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, you've got
Like in the true meaning of the word, I just don't believe that these are real people.
this Billy walking around in the YMCA, though, was to me a little bit, and walking through the snow too with the sword was a little bit reminiscent of Luke Skywalker on Dagobah with Yoda in the little backpack during the training sequence. There's another thing that I just thought of that, keeping in true form with how this movie just drops things. Oh, here's the Futterman scene. We'll talk about it in a second. The fact
That was our clip to our.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was
picture.
our clip. It was our
Our hint.
hint from from this last week, couple weeks ago when we put up the
when the gremlins were running down the street there, and were they claymation in that scene? They looked like they were claymation, maybe.
Yeah. I think they were.
Where they were running down the street in between the cars.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we only had one person guess it, and it was Jessica Kyra Lambert, a girl I went to college with. So
cool. Good
job. You guessed it.
So I was trying to find out how many gremlins were made, and I couldn't find it out quickly. But however, I did just look up a really crazy fact where apparently the Gizmo puppets were so frustrating to the crew because they were smaller and they broke down a lot and they were such a pain in the ass that the crew created a list known to them as the horrible things to do to Gizmo list. And the scene in which the gremlins hang Gizmo on a wall and throw darts with him was a part of satisfying the crew's desire that they do that because it was on the list.
Terrible.
They wanted to see Gizmo have darts thrown at him. That's so sad.
I can't not mention the fact that on Twitter we also had another a fellow movie podcast, the Movie Madness podcast, also guessed correctly based on the hint that this was Gremlins. So we did have two people guess correctly.
Okay.
So go check out their podcast. It's a good podcast.
So here our xenophobe is going to be proven correct.
That's something that was set up earlier that we didn't talk about, but his whole arc, which is strangely, he's one of the few characters in the movie that actually gets a complete arc, although I really hate how his arc is completed. Every single scene that he's in, he is talking about foreigners and how he hates foreigners. He hates foreign-made cars and how he laments the fact that his American-made snowplow is full of foreign replacement parts. Yeah, exactly. And, he's messing with the TV and he's talking about how they should have gotten a Zenith and not this foreign TV. And he switches on some French movie and he starts saying foreigners, 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 foreigners. He's obviously a xenophobe, right?
Right.
And then in a previous scene when he was
particular hate in my heart for those kind of people too.
Yes, exactly.
Living as a foreigner for the last 4.5 years.
No patience for bigots. Yes, no patience whatsoever. And in a previous scene at Dory's Tavern when he's drunk and Kate is kind of ushering him out and trying to get him to go, he starts talking about gremlins. Is he even prompted to talk about them at all, or does he just start saying gremlins?
I think he's talking about his snowplow being messed up, and that's when it comes up.
Okay, right. So he starts talking about gremlins because his snowplow is messed up, and he says that foreigners, as he says, would put gremlins into airplanes to mess with them during World War II. Like that's a famous piece of folklore from that time period, and then his arc comes to an end when he gets attacked by the foreign gremlins. That actually, the movie actually sets up that they do come from a curio shop in Chinatown sold by a stereotypical Chinese man and a short round.
They're brought over by foreigners.
Mm-hmm. And they attack the xenophobe that's afraid of things that are foreign. So the script is basically
totally justified.
Exactly. The script is telling us that his xenophobia was correct. It was justified the entire time. So,
which is just a terrible message.
Yeah. Like the movie's racist. It's racist for other reasons too, but that also. I just realized that you talked about the kid at the beginning of the movie kind of looking like Short Round.
Yeah, that was
not just because he's Chinese, but he wears a blue baseball cap and a shirt.
I was not saying that because he was Chinese at all. I was saying it because of Temple of Doom.
Right.
Because it's the same year as Temple of Doom, and because we get the indie picture later on the billboard.
Yeah, of course. And the local radio announcer
Rick Rialto
or something like that. His billboard is in the Indiana Jones font style, and he's dressed up like Indiana Jones with a microphone cord around him.
Yeah, that was
like
the reason
whip.
I was saying it is because it was just too much.
Just more Spielberg wanking.
Right.
I
really think I wasn't saying little Chinese boy. I was saying absolutely he's Short Round. He's
dressed
Short Round.
like him.
Yes.
He looks
That's okay. So here is one thing I don't like about this movie. I don't like that we paint the guy with the dog as the good guy and the evil lady as the cat lady. I don't like that.
I do kind of love that the greedy old lady names all of her cats
after money,
after different types of currency.
That is pretty funny.
Like she's got a ruble and a dollar bill. She calls one of them dollar bill. One of them's, does she call one of them like a drachma or something like that? I don't know, but
yeah, that is pretty funny.
I think that's pretty great. But yeah, so Mrs. Deagle, who actually looks, for whatever reason, a whole lot better at home than she does, like all gussied up. Like she looks younger and I don't know.
And not as evil.
Not as evil when she's just at home with her hair put up in a bun. But the gremlins are messing with her stair climber thing. The thing that, so she doesn't have to climb the stairs on her own.
I guess so, yeah.
The thing that, as the meme says, the thing that drives her up a fucking wall. And when she gets on it, she's going to hit the turbo button. Or it's not the turbo button, but it's the go button.
And it's going to
launch her out the window, and she dies horribly.
Yeah. But, that was coming to her, right? Because she's the evil character in the movie. So
right, who wants to kill the main character's dog. Yes, exactly.
But the same thing didn't happen to other characters that we expected it to happen to. It's very disappointing.
Well, at least she doesn't disappear like most of the characters in this movie.
That's true. No, that's what I'm saying, is that, it's good. It's good she dies horribly.
I think, unless it's already passed, I don't think it has, though. I think Corey Feldman's character, his arc is completed when he's standing in the window of his bedroom just shooting gremlins with a slingshot.
Yeah, I guess that's his story arc right there.
That's it.
He did it. Good job. What's that have to do with him? Did we learn
anything about him
to give us that scene?
I don't know. When we learn things about him as a character, we learn that he works for probably his dad at the tree lot, where he wears a Christmas tree costume and he delivers trees.
Shouldn't his
He also
whole story culminate in something to do with Christmas trees or something then?
Sure. And the sure, absolutely.
Or using like his stupid costume to his advantage or something.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, just
he hides.
Just the same way that like Rand, he's an inventor, so he has all of these different kind of inventions around the house.
Why didn't we kill the gremlins with I thought it was cool she put it in the microwave, and I guess she put it in the blender too, but
those are just regular.
Shouldn't we have killed the gremlins with like the orange juice maker and stuff like that?
Right, the one that goes crazy
with
and like sprays
with the bathroom buddy. Shouldn't we have found a
Yeah.
way to kill a gremlin with the bathroom buddy?
Or just another invention.
Mm-hmm. There should be, if there are kooky inventions all over the house, that's how we should be killing the
Exactly,
gremlins.
like Home Alone, this motherfucker, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here's Corey Feldman shooting. He was shooting gremlins, and he cut the wire that one was hanging on, some string of Christmas lights that one of them was hanging on, and that's it. That's all we get from Corey Feldman for the rest of the movie. I mean, I guess this, in order for a lot of this stuff to make sense, this movie probably would need to be in its original 2 hour
the truck
and 40
drives
minute cut.
into the Allstate insurance building.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
This whole scene of the chaos ensuing, some of the moments are pretty cute, like the truck driving into the insurance building. Also, outside of Mrs. Deagle's house, we saw a sign for her real estate hours.
Oh,
Do you know what her hours were?
Something really short, like a
10:30 a.m. to 11:15 a.m.
She's open for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So Billy's inside his car now, which at the beginning of the movie we established is a piece of shit, and he can't get it to work.
But it's working now.
Until this moment where he comes out, and it works when he needs it to work, and then he goes, and the next time he tries to turn it on, it doesn't work again, and that's the last we see of the car. And that's it.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. It's
Okay. Good job. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
So now we've got Rand, his dad, who's on the way back from the invention convention. You like that? The invention
good
convention.
Job. I'm proud of you.
And he's gonna try to sell this one of his inventions, a smokeless ashtray, to this station attendant, which comes back in a joke toward the end of the movie, which is the last half of what is a 3-part joke, the middle part of which was cut out. So at the end of the movie, the Chinese man from the curio shop comes back to take Gizmo away again. And when Rand tries to give him another model of the smokeless ashtray, he says that he's already seen it because the guy at the gas station tried to sell him the one that Rand was now trying to sell him in that scene. So there were 3 scenes that were supposed to call back to the smokeless ashtray. The one where Rand gives it to the gas station attendant, the one where the gas station attendant tries to sell it to the Chinese man, and then the final scene where Rand gives one to the Chinese man and he refers to the station attendant. But they got that middle part out, which I guess is fine. I mean, it's not a very good joke to begin with, but, whatever.
So this whole scene is the start of what you have a lot of problems with.
This endless just...
Why is she still working there? Why is, what's her name, Kate?
Kate, yeah.
Why is she serving the gremlins alcohol? I don't understand why she hasn't left.
I don't know, but she's pouring them drinks and she's lighting them cigarettes. I
guess she's, I get the feeling she can't get away now, but how did this start? Did they just start coming in and ordering drinks and she felt like she couldn't get away immediately and she just, went with it?
It goes on forever. You've got like the gremlin who flashes her, and the gremlin they're hanging from the fan, and the gremlin who's playing arcades, and the one that's drinking right from the beer tap, and then you've got
the poker
Spike
table
and a bunch of guys playing poker, and then here's like what we can assume is a female lady gremlin because she's got lipstick on, and as I understand it, there is actually a female gremlin in the second movie that has like long green hair. But I don't know. And then, Stripe, did he just shoot somebody or is he about to? Yeah, he's going to shoot another gremlin for, I guess, cheating at poker. So we've got all of these shenanigans going on, and you think it's coming to an end, and then you get like the Casablanca thing where you've got this one gremlin sitting in a corner table with a cigarette and wearing a fedora, and then there's another gremlin who is playing
does a
little puppet show for him. And then right after this is the Flashdance spoof, and it just keeps going and going and going. This is come on.
It's gone on for a while now.
And you don't think this is for kids?
No, I don't think it is for kids. I think it's for immature adults, as we all should be.
Okay, all right. I mean, I guess I won't disagree with that.
Immature adults are adults who've, sat there and had a couple beers and are hoping their kids are in bed and not in the hallway watching the movie.
And now, one of the things that's very well established in this scene in particular is that most of these... Bright lights? Anyone? He's sticking his finger in a socket.
That is a lot of bright light right
and
there.
Bright light is like right in his face, and he's just laughing about it.
No one's freaking out.
We established that most of these gremlins are smoking because they're smoking and drinking and they're crazy. So Phoebe Cates lights a match to light a gremlin's one of 3 cigarettes that's in its mouth, and it keeps retracting
until it falls off the chair.
The flame.
Because it can't stand the light.
Right.
And then she proceeds to flash the camera and make her way out of the building.
So how exactly did all of these gremlins get their cigarettes lit in the first place?
I don't know. Maybe they closed their eyes.
Yes, maybe they did.
Which is what you should just do during this scene so you don't cause such a fuss about it.
I'll just close my eyes through the entire movie. How about that? I'll just take a nap the next time it's on. I think that would be time better spent. I really, really don't like this movie. I
can tell.
I'm sorry.
I really don't like it.
I don't mean to be a fuddy-duddy, and I don't mean to be the idiot, the douchebag that doesn't like Gremlins because I'm too good for it or some shit.
This is silly for you.
This is a bad movie.
No, I agree. It's not a good movie, but I still think it's fun, though. I think it's funny. I mean, not funny. It's not like haha funny.
No, it's not really that funny.
But,
like I get that it's supposed to be a comedy, but no, it's not that funny.
But I don't know. I don't hate it, though. Like I said, Gizmo's so cute that I can't help but enjoy every scene that he's in because he's so adorable.
So I guess Billy turned off his car to rescue Kate, and now he can't turn his car on again. So they're going to have to run across the square into the bank, where we get just an inexplicably fucked up scene of Kate explaining why she doesn't celebrate Christmas.
And it's not because she's Hindu, as he says
Oh
earlier
my
in
God,
the movie.
right? What are you,
Hindu
Hindu or something? Yeah, it's really bizarre, isn't it? Like I know that this is supposed to be riding the line between like, oh, it's kind of a violent, naughty, edgy, horror movie, and then also kind of a family-friendly kids movie with some comedy and some light stuff in it. But this story that she tells about how her dad died is so profoundly fucked up. When I watched this movie last week, like preparing for this, I was speechless. I could not believe that she was, and leading up to it, she's telling the story, and she's a terrible actress. So I'm just listening to her, just spit out her lines as well as she possibly can. And she's building up to this moment, and I'm like, no, she's not going to say that the smell coming from their chimney was her missing father. And then she goes on and starts talking about how, and she's telling the story now. She says that her and her mom were decorating the tree, and they're waiting for dad to come home from work, and he never came home. And then they smelled something inside the chimney, and the firemen came and broke into the chimney top and pulled it out. And they were like, well, we thought it'd be a cat or a bird, but nope. It was Dad. It was Dad's rotting corpse, dressed in a Santa suit, arms full of presents, who had slipped coming down the chimney to surprise them and broken his neck, dying instantly and getting stuck inside the chimney.
Yeah, it upset me when I was a kid, but even when I was a kid, like after I heard it, I still couldn't understand like the physics of it, Because, I mean, all chimneys are really just like the size of a plate where they're open.
Yeah, they're real small. I don't think I've ever seen...
Like, it's hard for even just a bird and stuff to get in there and build a nest. Like, that's a problem, like a bird building a nest or like a squirrel getting in it. That's like a reality, but beyond that, it's... So I'm just wondering, as a kid, after I was in later elementary school when I watched this with my eyes open, and listened to this story, I remember having the impression that chimneys were like huge, that a person could climb down them. But then I later realized that no, they aren't. So I don't understand how this story happens. Maybe they have a special chimney. Is there any, let's talk about this from a kind of Christmas context and a Christmas perspective. Is there any good reason for this movie to take place during Christmas? Is there anything about it? I don't know all her stories and stuff about Christmas, but I feel like that's after.
That's an afterthought,
it's
right?
It's an afterthought, yeah. So, no, nothing.
So what about this movie, either thematically or even story-wise?
I don't know, that Gizmo was a present. If we had done the thing where, like, we had gotten them 4 children all around the world,
right?
Or all around the town or something like that as Christmas presents, then sure, that would make sense.
I mean, it even would have made sense. Like, I feel like there's a better story here where the whole Peltzer pet thing did take off, and they started selling the gremlins, and all these people had the gremlins in their house, and that's when chaos started, and that's when people started feeding them after midnight and not taking care of them, as people are prone to do with pets.
Right, and like the Chinese guy comes in the end, and that's part of his moral in the first place, where he's saying, you aren't ready for the Mogwai yet. Yeah,
exactly, and that whole thing. But then, there's another element of that story which I think could have worked, where the chaos that Rand introduces into people's lives by marketing these gremlins, he can also be the redemption for that
by having some invention
that's really popular around the holidays that people are also buying, and then word gets out that you have to use this thing to kill the gremlins, or you have to use this thing to change them back, and it's something that he figured out that had like another purpose, another application.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, it makes sense, and
like there's another story here that's not so isolated.
I'm sure there were a lot
of
other stories here that could have happened. Let's talk about some stories that happened because of this story.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the spin-off movies. like the 1984.
Oh, did you hear that that excellent line of dialogue that the gremlin just said? I'll quote it for you. Milk duds. That was it.
You did a good job.
All right.
Again, you're doing a really good job
Please
tonight.
continue.
Well, I guess I don't know if it can be a spinoff though, because it was in the same year. So it must have been one of those things where I guess they got wind of it and like wrote a movie really fast to try and
is it
put
like
one
a
out at the same
Tombstone,
time.
Wyatt Earp,
Yeah.
Dante's Peak
Ghoulies.
volcano
Ghoulies
thing?
was also 1984.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And Ghoulies is the one you watched that one with me, right?
Yes, I did. Ended up being about the cult.
Yeah, like the
I
guy
feel
they
like,
moved.
I feel like the Ghoulies marketing, especially the movie poster, was more of a response to Gremlins than the movie itself, because the movie itself doesn't
really have
like
any
the movie
feeling
poster is them
at
coming
all.
out of the toilet, and that never happens in the movie.
Yeah, I know, and that I kept waiting for it because that looked like the most interesting
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, Ghoulies
right?
it does not feel like Gremlins at all. Like I feel like the marketing was trying
no,
to
it was like a
ride that little bit.
satanic thing or like a cult
Yes,
thing.
yes.
They move into a house and then the guy becomes obsessed with controlling these demons that the previous owner had summoned or something like that. It was bad though.
Can we just say that I don't think the Walt Disney Company
Way worse than this.
would ever give anyone the rights to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to feature in their movie that has all of this violence and stuff in it.
Yeah, how did that happen?
There's a story behind it. I'm not sure what it is though.
Huh.
I think it's in my notes. I'll look it up.
So
Keep talking.
next, Critters. I haven't actually seen Critters, and now I totally have to see it because I had heard about it before, and I've never gotten around to seeing it. And God, I love watching really bad horror movies. So I need to watch Critters. But that one has to do with little aliens on a farm, I guess. Now the next one I have seen, Hobgoblins. It was in 1988. Did you watch that one with me? I don't remember.
Maybe. I think I fell asleep.
So Hobgoblins is the one where the creatures escape from a studio vault and they go crazy around the town. I recall a lot of the scenes. I watched it this year during October when I only watched bad horror movies for like a month straight and then just totally wore myself out on them. I think I watched 7 or 8 of the Puppet Master movies that month.
Yes, you did. Also, we can assume here from Stripe reading the sign across the street that Gremlins can read.
That's good.
They can read English.
That's good.
How about that? Also, we can assume that because Kate knew exactly where the boiler room to the movie theater was, this must be her third job.
Yes.
It must
be her third job.
Also, how did Billy know that the Gremlins would be in the theater?
Maybe that he heard them singing from
Did he?
inside or something.
No, he didn't start singing until he was inside.
I don't know.
Nope, not. Where should we go next? I don't know. Let's go here. Oh, turns out it's the right place to go. Let's keep the movie going.
They got it then. They figured it out.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so Hobgoblins is having not seen Critters, I can't say it's the worst out of all of them because I don't know how bad Critters is. But I mean, just the premise of Critters sounds more interesting than what Hobgoblins was, which basically was like, for some reason, the Hobgoblins made everybody's fantasies become real life, except then go bad in the end.
Huh.
I don't know how that happened because I don't know like what relation the Hobgoblins had to like the people and why. I don't know. Anyways, I remember one of the characters was into this sex line and the girl like shows up, but then she was evil or something like that.
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
It was a lot of important scenes
before
took
we get
place
past
on a
it,
golf cart.
does the movie theater look familiar? Because it should. Like that shot in particular is like the exact same framing of.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, when Marty
Marty-
McFly comes back to the future in the first movie and crashes into the movie theater right there. Yep. It's the exact same
I
set.
thought the Gremlins
exact
were
same
cute
shot.
when they were running out of the building with the bags on their head.
Oh, yeah? You like that? Okay.
I thought that was cute. Anyways, it was Hobgoblins was one of the worst movies I've seen.
Worse
ever.
than Slugs the movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Slugs the movie was great. That was a good movie. I like the part when the slug was like, rawr.
Tried to bite his finger.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. Hobgoblins was terrible. There was this whole scene in the front yard where they had like a man contest and two of the guys were like hitting each other with sticks.
Oh, I did. I think I did watch
and
that
like
with you.
the girl's boyfriend loses, and she's like totally not into him anymore because he lost in this stick fight in the front yard.
You know, we're now talking about a different shitty movie than the shitty movie we're watching.
Yeah, but it's a spin-off of this movie.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's why.
Spin-off?
Spin-off?
Inspired by.
Sure. Whatever. They were trying to make money off of Gremlins.
They were riding the Gremlins, popularity wave. Yeah, lots of little stuff in this movie that I feel like is totally Steven Spielberg's fault for not working. In the original script, Gizmo was actually supposed to be the one that transformed into the evil gremlin and was the leader of the bad gremlins, and then they had to kill Gizmo.
That's really sad.
But Steven Spielberg was like, no, I was going to sell some toys, and people like a cute thing, so don't kill him. Don't make him a bad one.
I mean, story-wise, it makes no sense
Spielberg
whatsoever.
sounds,
it makes no sense that one of them just magically is, not evil. Well, I guess that's not true.
No,
right?
it's fine. They can all have their own
different
personalities, and that's fine.
Except that none of them have a different personality except for Gizmo.
Well,
he's the only one who's not evil.
Well, one of the reasons, and you were talking about how the crew hated Gizmo because he didn't work right. The reason he didn't work properly is because it wasn't decided until they were already shooting, and after the Gizmo puppets, the animatronics and everything had already been made. Steven Spielberg had the brilliant idea to not only not make Gizmo transform and keep him in the movie for the entire time because he was cute, which subsequently gives Gizmo like nothing to do throughout the entire movie until the very end of the movie, where Steven Spielberg is like, yeah, put him in a little car, make him drive around and do that. We'll just shoot a pickup where he's watching the Clark Gable picture, and it'll make sense. Just don't worry about it. And also he's going to pull the shades, and he's going to be the one that actually kills Stripe. The person who designed the animatronics, the person who designed that puppet, did not design Gizmo to do any of that shit. He only designed him to do the stuff that happens in the first half of the movie before the Gremlins transform, because he was supposed to transform. He was supposed to be Stripe.
Right.
Or, the equivalent, the leader of the Gremlins. So at the end of the movie, you can see when he's driving around, it looks really shitty, and it looks extra shitty when he pulls the cord for the blinds to let the sunlight in, and he gets dragged to the top of the ceiling and falls down. It's just the doll. It's like someone just threw it up in the air and threw it against the ceiling, and it just falls down. Like, there's no movement. There's nothing. There's no nuance to any of the movements or anything.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree that his animatronics are kind of wanky.
There was another thing. Did you see that right there?
The E.T. moment where he's sticking out of the stuffed
So he's
animals.
walking through the toy store, and there's a line of stuffed animals right at the front of which. And as soon as I saw the stuffed animals, like when I was watching this, as soon as I saw the stuffed animals, I was like, they're going to do an E.T. thing. He's hiding in them like E.T. The doll right in front is an E.T. doll.
Yeah.
And then Stripe comes through like E.T. does in the scene from E.T. Someone needs to put Spielberg on a fucking leash. I swear to God.
Anyways, I totally agree with you that story-wise, it makes absolutely no sense that Gizmo would be the only one to not be evil out of all these. Even in the sequel, they're all evil except for Gizmo. He's just an anomaly, I guess. So it doesn't make any sense, and it probably would make a better movie if he did turn evil too. It would probably be creepier to have this thing that you thought was cute and that you really loved that actually is evil.
And
right?
how about this? Pragmatically, give the thing something to do.
Right. No,
give him
I get
something
it.
to
I
do.
get it.
Because he doesn't. He hangs out in a backpack for most of this movie.
I totally agree with you. I don't care. At all.
Because he's adorable.
Because he is so cute. Oh, God, I love it when he puts the Band-Aid on his head. Oh, he's so cute.
I said this
Gizmo.
before, but why Howie Mandel? Was that even necessary? Like, I said that before, but it just blows my
mind. It
mind.
could have been anybody.
Because I didn't even know that about this movie. That's like, I imagine that's something that anyone who knows movies and knows this movie in particular is like, oh yeah, Howie Mandel did the did the voice of Gizmo. I mean, that to me is
Did like the 3 lines where he goes, bright light, bright light.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yes, exactly.
And that's
And you've got some other like veteran voice actors, like Frank Welker does the voice of Stripe, I believe, who is Frank Welker's famous for doing tons of voices, but probably most famous for doing Fred and Scooby-Doo. In the original Scooby-Doo cartoon, and also the voice of Megatron from Transformers. Peter Cullen, who does the voice of Optimus Prime in the original Transformers cartoon and in the new movies as well. He does voices for this movie. Like there's a lot of good voice actors from the time period, a lot of famous voice actors. That makes sense. Like Howie Mandel was a comedian, and I know that he had some voice acting stuff. After this, I know he did his kind of voice acting vehicle was the show.
Here's the line.
Yeah, and the guy that needs a certain kind of dame, and Gizmo's driving around. What does that even mean? What does that mean in context of Gizmo?
Were we supposed to get like some relationship thing out of him and Kate or something like that? Like what are we stretching to here?
I'm not sure. What was the point that I was making before?
You were talking about Howie Mandel.
Yeah, and I guess his voice acting vehicle after this was Bobby's World, but I don't know. Like I never knew him as a voice actor. Like I knew he did.
Yeah, I don't
stuff.
think it matters. I don't think it matters because he
it's
says
like
2 lines.
It's like George Clooney doing the voice of the dog on South Park. Like it sounds like a joke. Like someone's like, "Oh, we got Howie Mandel to do the voice of this thing that doesn't even really talk. It barely speaks English." One interesting thing about Howie Mandel doing the voice of Gizmo is that in foreign markets where this came out, Howie Mandel still did the voice and learned all of it, like the few lines that he had. He learned all of them phonetically. So,
that's cool.
When this came out in different languages,
I mean, but
that's
again, he
still
only had
all
to
Howie
say
Mandel.
bright light.
Right, exactly. I would like to see the Japanese
and
version
make
of this.
some like really cute noises when he's hurt.
I'm gonna since we're here in Japan, of course, I'm gonna track down
the
Japanese voice version and hear what Howie Mandel's limited Japanese sounds like.
So gremlin possibly comes from the Old English meaning to vex. And in folklore, gremlin were originally they were imps, and they didn't have anything to do with like mechanical stuff because there weren't mechanical things before now.
Right.
So back in the day, gremlins were kind of basically just like imps. But sometime in the 1920s, British pilots started using the term to describe creatures that were sabotaging their aircrafts. A lot of people credit it to even possibly World War I, but there's no print reference to verify that. But they say the first print reference comes from a poem from the 1920s. I think it's 1929. And then Gremlins turned into what most people knew them as before this movie, which was like a mechanical kind of trickster, some kind of creature that gets into things that are electrical or have engines or something like that and messes them up, makes them not work as well, which they do a lot in this movie. They do a lot of that. They mess with the traffic lights and they make cars crash and they do things like that. And I think that's good. I think that's nice that like we tied it in that way, and that they're tricksters, that they're pranksters the way that imps are. Mogwai, though, besides being a Scottish post-rock band,
Yeah.
besides that, it is Cantonese for monster, evil spirit, demon, devil.
Yes, and contains the Chinese characters for magic or spirit and demon. In Japanese, it would be pronounced if it were pronounced in Japanese, because in Japanese there is actually no combination for those two characters. But if you were to put them together, it would be what would it be? Maki, I think. Yeah, that's right, maki. It would be maki if you put those
Like
two together.
makizushi.
Like makizushi, but not nearly as delicious.
Anyway, so
Yeah, this death scene, the death scene of
oh god, it's gruesome. Where his skin's melting off.
Yeah. Originally, when he comes back out of the fountain as a skeleton, Billy was supposed to crush the skeleton with a baseball bat. Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, I guess so.
So what was I going to say? In Chinese language biblical texts, they translate Satan in the Book of Job to Mogwai.
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
And also, the water thing is possibly from real Chinese folklore with Mogwai, where the creatures reproduce sexually, not by bouncing tribbles off of their backs.
Yeah, but around like the rainy season or something like that.
It has to do with the rain because rainfall signifies rich and full times in the future. So they make certain to reproduce when it rains. So, that's a tie-in for the water. Don't know where they get the don't feed after midnight from, because that's just...
The bright light thing, I'm just going to assume is to make it so that the shitty puppets don't look as shitty. Just keep them in the dark all the time. No, they look pretty good, right?
I think some of the practical effects in this movie are pretty good.
I think the gremlins, the transformed gremlins, I think look really good. I think the Gizmo puppet looks kind of shitty. Like are
you making fun of Gizmo?
He's adorable, but like the skin, like the fleshy parts, like the mouth and the nose and stuff, look really like clay. Like it's. Why are you so sad? I mean, he's still cute, but he looks like a toy, like a mass-produced toy, which I believe was probably the point.
Is this where Furbies came from? You remember those stupid things?
That's interesting that you say that. The Furby company was actually sued because it resembles Gizmo
too
so
much.
But then eventually, I guess there was some deal struck where the Furby company whoever makes Furby actually made a Gizmo version of Furby. So you can get a Furby that's Gizmo.
Huh.
Yeah. But no, they were sued because the Furbies look too much like Gizmo.
Yeah, they look
talk like Gizmo.
Straight up like Gizmo. You remember when everybody wanted one of those?
I do.
Terrible little things?
I do remember that.
Did you ever have one?
I did not. I didn't want one.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I think I had some family members that had one. Yeah, I was never interested in it. What was they weren't they like learning toys or something?
Yeah, I always
you could talk to them and they would learn your name and stuff like that or something. I can't remember.
I don't know. I never had one either.
Something really interesting though is that Steven Spielberg watched the short films of a certain director and actually had chosen him first to direct this movie, but thought that he did not have enough experience to do a full feature yet, and that was Tim Burton.
Oh my gosh!
Who I think probably would have done
this movie.
I think he probably should have done Gremlins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have done great with this.
I think so. Early Burton. I mean, early Burton is. I'm a big fan of that early stuff. I think he would have been a good choice for this movie.
So here we're trying to get our message across, but we aren't sure what it was.
What was it exactly?
The Chinese guy has come back and has taken away Gizmo and says that they are not ready for Mogwai because they don't understand. And he also says that you do to Mogwai what your society does to all of nature's gifts. I don't understand what that means. Burn them when they're evil? Is that what we do to all of nature's gifts?
I guess so. I don't know. The only thing
feed them after midnight?
The only thing I've learned from this movie is don't under any circumstances trust foreigners. That's what I've learned. That is the point that they have driven home more successfully than any other point in this entire movie.
And don't trust foreigners.
Yes. But because it is still a Christmas movie, have you heard of all of the ways in which this movie is similar to It's a Wonderful Life?
Oh, I had heard something about this.
So for example, they have the towns have similar names, Kingston Falls and Bedford Falls. Of course, the Christmas setting, there's a bank, there's characters with the name Billy. Artwork is involved in some way. George Bailey and Billy Peltzer living with their parents. Murray Futterman's World War II stories, and the war breaks out during It's a Wonderful Life. Both Billy and George have a dog. Both towns have a heartless miser that tries to control everything, Mrs. Deagle and Mr. Potter. The Baileys run a family business while Pete Fontaine, who's played by Corey Feldman, sells Christmas trees for his father. Then there's the door on George's car sticks while Billy's Volkswagen is also temperamental when it wants to be conveniently for the narrative. Mrs. Deagle hassles the Peltzers while Mr. Potter hassles the Baileys. The reporters that try to take George's picture and Mrs. Mrs. Peltzer taking Gizmo's picture, and Kate stunning the Gremlins with a flash, the Polaroid, and then Mr. Potter and Mrs. Deagle both like to foreclose on things. Both towns have a bar, Martini's and Dory's pub. Then there are snow plows in Bedford Falls, while Mr. Futterman owns a snow plow. Both George and Billy receive personal calls at the bank. There's snow in both films. Some of these are really like superficial.
Yeah, I'm getting that
Christmas
feeling.
carols, because it's a Christmas movie.
I feel like this is kind of a list of things that are in movies about small towns at Christmas.
Yeah. Like you could probably do this with a lot of movies like that.
I had read something online about It's a Wonderful Life and Gremlins, and I didn't do any further research on it. But now that you've read that, I'm glad I didn't, because pretty sure that's just a list of mostly things that happen in small town Christmas movies.
Yeah, but in the original version of this, the creatures actually killed the dog, and they cut off the mom's head and threw it down the stairs.
For real?
I'm glad that didn't happen, because the mom is a badass. And
Yeah,
she
she
doesn't
was.
deserve to go like that. In fact, she probably should.
And I
have
don't
been
like
the
it when
star of the
animals
movie.
die in movies. That makes me sad.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's Gremlins. Not super recommended.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. We've got 3 more weeks of our Christmas movies to do. So holiday movies as well. So stay tuned. And so now that we've reached the end of the movie, we'd like to read a 5-star review that we received on iTunes. However, we did not receive any reviews on iTunes. In fact, we don't have any at all to read 5-star or otherwise. So if you would like to leave us a review on iTunes, we'd really, really, really appreciate it. But as always, you can find us on our website at popcornpoops.com. Please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook if you'd like to receive updates about the show, including our weekly movie still identification game. If you have a question, comment, or movie request for us, you can reach us on our social media outlets or by emailing us at thepopcornpoops@gmail.com.
Next week, we'll be watching and talking about Jeremiah S. Chechik's 1989 film, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. If you have any questions about that movie or related topics you'd like us to discuss, please contact us through social media or email.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Every week on the In Session Film Podcast, you can expect to hear reviews on all of the latest movies, big films, small films, and everything in between. We'll also do top 3 segments relating back to our main review. We discuss all of the latest movie news and rumblings, as well as have movie series and other fun segments. And we always talk about the films that we're watching and why you should watch them or not watch them as well. If you want to learn more about the In Session Film Podcast, check us out online at InSessionFilm.com. You can hear our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and so much more. In fact, you can listen to everything we have straight from our website. Again, that is InSessionFilm.com. Download our podcast, check us out, and come join us every week. We'd love to hear from you.